things happening like it's gone up a bit, but then it's going really down. So what does all this mean for real estate?
With real estate, when everything's booming, everyone wants to get a license.
71% of agents didn't sell a single home last year.
Are we always going to use lumber? Is there going to be some other material?
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the CLOUT podcast. I'm Montana.
I'm Logan.
I'm Nate.
And I'm Blake.
Okay, so we have some more, just the real estate world never sleeps. We have some exciting, or maybe not exciting, but we have some news going on this week. So we're going to start with our first story, tariffs. The tariffs, we've been seeing a lot in the news about Donald Trump imposing tariffs on China, Mexico, Canada. What does this mean for real estate? A lot of people are saying it's going to increase the price of building costs, things like that. I want to know, what are your guys' opinion on what is going on with these tariffs? How's it going to affect real estate?
Yeah, definitely. Well, when it comes to building a new home, and a lot of different materials are involved, and you don't really think of tariffs as in buying a house because it's in the country, but where do all these products come from? From the grout and the tile to the lumber and the framing. So definitely when it comes to lumber, you could probably expect the lumber cost to just go through the roof because we get a lot from Canada. There's mixed opinions on it. So I could probably go on, but what's really going to affect a majority, I think, is construction costs.
Yeah, I think as far as lumber goes, it kind of brings up an interesting conversation about just the future of materials and what that looks like. You can look at it from a standpoint where we are relying on somebody else for this material like lumber, or do we start trying to trend towards a direction where we start grabbing lumber from our forests, and we start taking from that our own supply opposed to trying to use and trade other countries for their supply. So that could be a good thing, bad thing, depending on how you look at it, because if you like forests like myself, you're not really going to want deforestation happening, which could very easily happen the way that we're doing America First, or at least following that type of agenda as a country from an administration level. So I think that's something to think about. And then when you start to consider other resources like the future, like I briefly mentioned, was are we always going to use lumber? Is there going to be some other material? I know that when you start thinking about sustainability and being able to use even plastics or other materials that are used in 3D printers, do we get to a point one day where we're not really so reliant on lumber as we have been in the past? So it's something to think about. And then the quality too, a lot of these lumber farms are churning out very subpar pieces of wood these days, and it has been for years. So a lot of builders have talked about the cost of lumber going up, but they also notice that some of the wood and the size of the wood is shrinking, let alone the durability of it. So you're paying more for getting less and a lower quality product. So I think the conversation is probably bigger than we know, because if they're planning on really trying to hone in on our supply of lumber, then you could kind of ask yourself, is it the forests or is it the quality of products that you're more worried about?
Yeah, I think if you really look back in time, 2x4 was a true 2x4 back in, I think, the early 70s. So if you see construction from that time, the 2x4s are thick and redwood and just, they're in pristine condition. And nowadays, if you go to Home Depot or one of these stores, they're definitely smaller. And I think you bring up a good point, Nate, when you talk about alternatives. And I think we're going to see the increase of alternative, use of building materials like concrete, 3D printing and stuff. But I think what's really important to know is we need to ramp up production of that quick to fulfill the need of, all the new construction and stuff. So, it's wherever you take from something, it's taken from something else. And, I think it's great American products. You're taking forests out of America, and doing that. But ultimately, I think, we think, how does this affect consumers, right? Is the consumer going to pay more? Is this going to create more jobs? And it's just such a big conversation of so much moving parts in it.
They really don't make anything like they used to. They really don't. Especially, I think the wood thing makes sense too, especially after the fires, there were a couple houses that made it through. And I think even just thinking of things like that, wood just burns literally like at a campsite. So like there's other ways, there's got to be other ways to do it.
Yeah, I remember a video I saw probably a few months ago of this one builder who threw like a huge fit at Home Depot, and he buys lumber from there all of the time. And he ended up buying just like pallets of it. And he ended up going back and just showing how all of the wood that he had was already bowing after like a week. So that just goes to show that a lot of these lumber farms that we're getting wood from are really not even good in the first place. So it's something to keep in mind for sure when considering a resource.
This is a bit off. It's not directly tied to this story, but this was all happening this week, and so I couldn't help but see it. So maybe we can just piggyback this one in. But when all this was happening with the tariffs, there was also a couple of days where the market went really down, like the stock market. So what does that mean for real estate? Because I know I've read over the couple of days, like with all this things happening, like it's gone up a bit, but then it's going really down. So what does all this mean for real estate?
Like as far as just the market as a whole and how it talks with the real estate industry, or
I guess as a whole, but like kind of what happened this week, because I just saw a bunch of chatter about it this week. Like what's actually, like I just feel like there's a lot of things going on that aren't connected but like connect together, like the tariffs and the market, then the housing.
Well, I think that, when you talk about an economy that's spending money, people buying houses, people shopping, usually those are the days that, our stock market are seeing green days, green months, and more of a bull market. But ultimately, a lot of people, especially people with a lot of wealth, are taking money off the stock market and getting ready to wait for another opportunity to make more money. So there's just like this one, there's so many playing parts. But, when you think of how it's affecting your local market, I'd probably think of some of these markets include, stocks and different companies that these people work with. And when you're buying a home, you could liquidate stocks within a company to buy a home. One of our clients actually just did it, where there was a couple that had just sold a handful of NVIDIA stock to buy their home cash. So what happens when your NVIDIA stock just plummets, right? You're thinking, oh man, do I take it out? What do I do? And this goes as far as investment accounts, retirement accounts. There's so many different types of markets that are affected by, these tariffs and, different regulation, different things that are happening right now.
Yeah. President Trump had addressed Congress and the rest of the country just the other day. And during those speeches, a lot of things are said. A lot of promises are typically made. So sometimes the market will just react negatively when they hear certain things. There's been a lot of discussion about rates coming down, and they haven't really moved too much compared to what people really want to see as a rate number. So I know that a lot of people have discussed that like a rate between like 5 and 6% would like really get the ball moving and get it rolling for people who want to get out of a rate that was maybe like a 3% and that are willing to sell and get into a little bit higher rate. But when you start going upwards of 7, people could get very wary. And that's why we're kind of stuck in a standstill, is that so many people ended up getting a better home for a lower rate, and they ended up accruing a bunch of value in their home. So you have to think like, if those people, if they have all this value, what's going to make them move, right? And it's probably going to be a rate that's a little bit near where they got it at, or else you just got a bunch of people who are sitting on the sidelines waiting for that same rate, especially when there's discussion and talks that the rates are coming down. So I think we're at a weird spot. And I think it also ties into construction. There's not going to be a lot of people wanting to build a bunch of homes if people aren't buying homes because the rates are high. So you can kind of drag your feet a little bit and wait for the market to be a little bit better.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of, because I work with real estate agents, even like outside, I don't want to put this on the CLOUT agents, but I'm like, a lot of agents I know were like so excited for this new term, and they were like waiting. People were holding like new, thinking they're going to come down. And now I'm like, well, it's March. Things are still like so up in the air, all these tariffs, things going on. So I was just curious, you guys' take.
To be honest, I think something's coming. I think that we're very fortunate to get, these last 6 years of appreciation within our stock markets, appreciation within the home values. Just, everyone was winning that had any type of asset. And, the truth is, whatever comes up must come down. And, with cycles that, hopefully the new highs are higher than the last highs, and the new lows are a little bit higher than the last lows. But I think something's coming, and it's just the affordability and living in America is so difficult just to go get groceries, to have a home. And the American dream is just like, it just seems so much further away than it was quite a while ago. When I was a kid, I remember thinking, oh man, I want six figures. I want six figures. And you're like, okay, well, if you want to buy a house nowadays, and the house is, let's say, $600,000, your monthly payment's $5,000 a month. And that's like with 20% down. So I think the average American is like that doesn't own assets is kind of screwed right now. And they have to wait for their opportunity. But as Nate was mentioning, a majority of America that has a home, they're on a 3.5%, I think, interest rate on average. So why would they sell their home that they don't fully own and then buy something else, right? So say if you had a $500,000 home, or your home is worth $500,000, and you want to buy a $600,000 home. Well, your 3.5% interest rate, your monthly payments, let's say, $3,500. Now you're going to go up to like $6,500. It's insane. So you're like, I can't do that. So that's why a lot of people aren't listing their homes, because they can't buy something else and replace that cost. I mean, maybe we'll see something creative one day where if you have a loan already, you can buy a new property but continue on that existing interest rate or something. I don't know, but we have to get creative.
Yeah, that's why you see a lot of influx in these newer territories like Boise, Wyoming, Texas, Nashville. I mean, a lot of people are moving from high income states, New York, California primarily, to my knowledge. And they're moving and they're selling their $1.7 million home, and you can buy 3 homes over here. You could buy a really big mansion ranch over in Wyoming, Montana, outskirts of town. So I think there's a big influx of cash buyers. I mean, most everything, if my mom's neighborhood, there's everyone around them is from the Bay Area. They all live, escaping California to come better quality of life, whatever that might look like. But I mean, there's a lot of influx. I'm sure Nate's seen it over in Texas just from the last couple of weeks he's been there, but I'm sure he's getting a lot of dirty looks with his California plates, I'm sure.
No, we actually we took a rental car, so we escaped that. But no, you're totally right. I know that even for ourselves, we've looked into what it looks like living in Texas one day, and let alone rent. I mean, you're looking at half the price of what we pay in California and getting triple the size over in Texas for the same amount of price. And that goes for home sales too. And people are willing to take on a higher percentage, I think, for their rate if they're able to get more. And that's the thing. That's why it's not really working, is that people aren't getting more unless they move to these other places. And we'll have to see what happens. I mean, there's some more stuff that I'll mention, but I'll save it for some of the other topics that we're going to talk about.
This topic leads actually effortlessly into the next story, which is kind of sad, but it's crazy too how, like you said, Logan, the American dream, it's just seeming further and further away. Like this weekend, I met some real estate investors and I was telling them my situation. I'm like, yeah, I'm single. I work for myself. And they're like, yeah, you're screwed. You need to buy some real estate. And I'm like, well, I don't know how. Well, I do know how, but it's just becoming really it feels like out of reach. I feel like for people our age, I don't know, because according to NAR, the average age for the first time US home buyers is 38 years old in 2024, compared to in 1981, it was 29. This is the highest it's ever been. I think it's because, it's just things are so expensive, cost of living, all these other things. Like, what are you guys' thoughts about why it's becoming older and older? And do you feel like it's slipping away from people our age?
So what I was going to say falls in line with this, is that we're getting, I think, very accustomed to renting and leasing and monthly payments and subscriptions. And I think that before, like even 10 years ago, 5 years ago, probably even 5 years ago, it was like, well, I'm not paying monthly for anything. Now it's like, I'm going to finance my toothbrush. And it's like, why are you going to do that? Because you can. But it's like, it just is something that they're willing to kick the can down the road a little bit, and they're willing to take that on because it's hard to save up $20,000 or $50,000 for a down payment. And you can have a really very nice place for a monthly payment that doesn't include that $50,000 down. And I think that's why a lot of these large corporations have really focused on building luxury apartments in all areas, is because even if it is cheaper to move from California to Texas or Boise, it's like the people that were in Boise already still are having a tough time and need a solution, which I think has been a really big focus on luxury apartments. Over here in Texas, I mean, it's a very growing area, and in San Antonio specifically, but there's luxury apartments by, the mass that are popping up everywhere with really nice luxury amenities. And it's very, I mean, you get everything you need. You don't have to, if you want to leave, you can end up paying for a year contract or go to a month and expect that you can leave somewhere else afterwards. But yeah, I think that a lot of these big companies like BlackRock, they understand that the goal is to get everybody to rent and rent everything, rent cars, to own nothing and rent everything.
Did you watch Ready Player One?
Yeah.
Like where they were all stacked on top of each other just living? Like I feel like that's what they want to do.
Yeah, me and Logan had spent some time watching that movie a couple of times, but I do think that people have mentioned that virtual reality is deflationary. And what they mean by that is you're able to have these virtual goods that really don't cost anything. They could cost like an upfront $5 to design a cool t-shirt in the virtual realm, but you could sell it a million times and it's not going to cost more. And if people start to gravitate towards that type of idea, then you start looking at a place where people are just living virtually. And I've always kind of said, once virtual reality started to take form, was that I do see a world where people are living like that, where there really isn't much design or furniture that's purchased aside from just being comfortable, because virtually or augment reality, you could use those platforms to design what you want, and it's going to be next to nothing to do. $2, imagine, for like a really different couch. Feels the same, feels great, but the environment you live in is going to be a lot cheaper, but it's the value that you're going to have of it, it's going to be really high. So they talk about it being deflationary in that aspect. It's interesting.
I think there's definitely a correlation between the average age Americans are getting married now to when they're buying a house. I don't think a lot of people can buy a house, on their own. And I don't think, people are definitely waiting longer to get married nowadays compared to, the earlier trends in the 70s, 80s, 90s, whatever. But I mean, you need two incomes to buy a house, especially in, big markets like California, and especially in cities like San Francisco, LA, New York City, So I think there's a lot of stuff that goes into why the average age has went up to 38, but it's expensive as heck.
And that's crazy though, because this is what just makes me think that things really have changed a lot. Because right now today, like my mom didn't work, my dad worked, but I still make more now than what he was making then. And they were able to get houses. And I'm like, so like we're even making more, but we still can't like get them. This one actually made me sad. And this is where I'm like, we need to help these agents, because 71% of agents didn't sell a single home last year, a new report. And this is what's even more disturbing. Only 5% of those agents actually live in a home. This is where they're living. Let's just go through this. 5% in their parents' basement, 7% in their brokerage office. I don't know how that happens. 10%, this is cute, in newly built podcast studios. 30% have apartments, okay? 12% live in the lobby of hotels. 15% their car.
I don't know, but it makes me think, because so I started out in real estate, and I was like, I'm helping other people buy homes, but I don't own a home myself. I felt very weird about that. So, I think that's weird. I think if you sell real estate, you should be buying real estate. Most real estate agents that I know, see the opportunities first, so snapping up investment properties, different situations. So it's always good to be really close to a real estate agent if you want to get a deal, because sometimes these happen so quick. But about the statistics, first off, the the percentage of agents that didn't sell anything, what was it, 71%?
71% didn't sell a house.
This is the thing, right? With real estate, when everything's booming, everyone wants to get a license because their friends that have license are starting to make money like crazy and they think it's easy. So they all run over, try and get their license, they get it, and they stick to it for a bit, and then they don't sell nothing. And then there's the very few that actually, and what I really mean is when they get licensed, they go into a hard economy to sell in, which is right now, high interest rates. It's so difficult to start out in real estate right now. But if you do start in real estate right now and you stick to it, by the time the wagon's rolling and the economy's booming, we're in a bull market and homes are going like crazy, you're going to be ready and be prepared. So that's what I see. I see the majority of those people were, part-timers, not doing it, seriously. So
I was actually going to say something very similar. I'm glad you brought that up. Is like a lot of, I would be interested to know how many of those people were first years and like what their track record was in the past. Because I mean, I saw this coming from a mile away when I think we even started like 5 years ago, when just like the most random people you went to college with were just like, they had no business savvy skill in their body, not even, a piece of hair of business on their body, and were like, I'm going to be a real estate agent. And, a lot of people watch Selling Sunset and it gets them pretty hyped up to be a really good real estate agent. And that's not reality. And the reality is that you have to be very business minded in order to succeed in real estate. And a lot of the people who do very well are really good at running a business. And homes are a product, much like sneakers on a store shelf. And you have to be able to market that storefront in a way that brings people through the door. And I think that a lot of these people just got hyped up, like Logan was saying. They started seeing their friends make money and making movies, probably, if they're on Selling Sunset. But yeah, it's a hard gig. But it just goes to show is when you see the most random people jumping on board for things that they don't understand, time to get out.
it's the biggest get rich quick scheme out there.
Yeah.
Because it really isn't, I like to see the data on agents in their first year. What is their, average closing, or how many do they close? Because some just go right in and they've got it, and then others suffer. But it's expensive to be an agent. So, every year you have to pay your dues. And I think it's like $1,500 a year to just be licensed, right? And if you're not licensed, then you can't sell. So people are like, I don't want to pay my dues next year. I don't want to do that because interest rates are high, so then they leave.
I would like to think too, or would like to know what brokerages the majority of those, if there was any skew with the type of brokerage, because a lot of these brokerages have varying levels of support. And Blake and I were kind of talking about this a little bit earlier today, was that like a lot of these brokerages, you can sign up and be a realtor and, there you go. Like, good luck. They're paying minimal to be a part of that brokerage, and you're a realtor, but you got to go figure out everything on your own. And sometimes that's a little bit more expensive to do things that way, because if you're new and you're not a part of a company that really supports their agents, then you're out there spinning your wheels trying to learn from the ground up, when that really isn't always the best solution, especially when the train's already moving.
Yeah, I think you brought up a good point. During COVID, the market was hot over here. Everyone was moving, didn't really know what was going on, right? And there was a bunch of new real estate agents, and they were like, let's get rich quick, right? And that kind of like scheme, if you will. And it's taken some time to really weed out the bad agents, because those guys were just part-timers making a couple $100,000 or whatever the case was here, where, people who have dedicated 10, 15, 20 years locally know way, way, way more than these people that are just fire selling homes. And oh yeah, you're moving from California, you could buy 3 homes. And then, sure enough, they're they're being transactional with this person 4 different times or whatever the case is. So, I mean, it's crazy. It's Logan really hit the head there about how it's the get rich quick method. And thankfully it's definitely weeded out, but I would like to see some of that data on that article you brought up to see really what that looks like.
Maybe I'll find some more data and we can circle back next week. I feel like I'm back in college reading studies. So I did also notice a bunch of people became realtors in the pandemic. Like people I was like, I didn't even know you knew what a mortgage was. So yeah, totally. Okay, this is our final story, and I feel like Nate's going to do a better job of explaining it, but I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a rundown. So there was a lawsuit between Rex, NAR, and Zillow. And so it was Rex suing Zillow and NAR because they felt like they were reducing traffic to their listings. The courts ruled in favor of NAR. So I don't know, guys, because I've been researching these topics. Like, there's a lot of drama in the real estate world. I kind of love it, but there's also very mixed emotions about NAR. So we can talk about that another time, but there's a lot of drama in you guys' industry.
Yeah, we can talk about the drama real quick. Is NAR and just like the MLS are almost like monopolies, and you're forced to pay these dues, like Logan was mentioning, to be a realtor each year. And you can try and figure out like what value they bring you, or what, especially with like platforms like Zillow now. Like if you were just to go straight to Zillow, like, do you really need to be paying the MLS and abiding by their rules? And there's just kind of a lot of discussion about what's really helping them. And I think that there were some scandals as well in NAR, and a lot of brokerages, I think like Compass, don't like them because, I don't know, they weren't getting like the money and support and funding that they should have been, like as a brokerage. And I don't know, there's just back and forth about it. But from what I understand about REX, was that they deal with off-market listings. And I guess up until recently, those listings were in Zillow. So, and if anybody out there wants to fact check me, please do. But from what I understand is that these listings were on Zillow, and recently Zillow had or created a tab separately for REX, and their traffic plummeted. So I guess they ended up suing Zillow for stifling traffic to their listings because they're in a different tab. So, I mean, from a user interface and user experience standpoint, I could see how that's possible. But I don't know, it'd be interesting to see what comes of this.
Yeah, I think of taxation without representation when I think of NAR and CAR. I mean, essentially, it's a government entity. It's an association that you're paying for your license. So they give you the legal documents, they give you protection, they give you legal console, and all these different things you could do to reach out to them. But I mean, if you think about it, let's say just in that survey was 400,000 agents. I think there's something like 1.5 or something million agents in the US. So you could see how each agent paying, that $1,000 a year adds up. So, they should definitely have home ownership and the people that are selling homes, their best interest in mind. Then you just have these other little companies that come in and, make deals with, with NAR and probably the people, the government agencies that are running it and those officials. But I mean, if you really, really think about it, it's like some of these entities are just top heavy. They have a lot of money, and then they have other type of money coming in from these other companies like Zillow. So, I mean, ultimately, I think that that they need to step their game up, and I think agents need to, get together with their associations, with their offices, and demand that they give them the right services they need and the right protection they need, because a lot of things are changing.
Yeah. And I actually just did a little bit more research to figure out exactly what's going on here. So if you guys don't mind, would you like me to go ahead and talk about it?
Yes.
Let's talk about REX, Real Estate Exchange. It's a low-fee, technology-driven real estate brokerage that aimed to disrupt the traditional real estate model by offering non-MLS listings and bypassing traditional agent commissions. Instead of listing homes on the MLS, Rex used digital marketing and artificial intelligence to directly connect buyers and sellers claiming to lower costs by eliminating the need for traditional agents and commissions. So REX is upset because the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled against them in their lawsuit against Zillow and the National Association of Realtors. Rex had sued Zillow in 2021, arguing that NAR's no commingling rule, which required MLS listings to be displayed separately from non-MLS listings, was anti-competitive and significantly reduced traffic to REX's non-MLS listings. However, the court found that the rule was optional since only about 29% of MLSs did not adopt it, and that Zillow independently redesigned its website to comply with the rule rather than conspiring with NAR. As a result, the court denied REX's request for a new trial, affirming that their claims lacked merit. So it sounds like somebody got butthurt that their listings weren't on a very popular platform and they're out of business.
It's a private company, Zillow could do what they want. I don't like Zillow as much, but they could do what they want. Hey, I'm sorry, because ultimately Rex is trying to eat Zillow, and Zillow's like, "Ooh."
They're trying to do the same thing.
Business it's a tough thing, because all these new businesses come in and they want to do certain things a certain way, and it all looks pretty at the start, but at the end of the day, everyone's trying to grow.
It seems like Rex is trying to bypass what Zillow has done, which is obtaining the MLS listings and pairing up with the MLS to list those homes on their platform. And Rex is trying to shoot to the end and be like, eventually there's going to be no MLS and it's going to be direct buyer to seller. And there's no need for agents. And they got hung up, it's like, what are you going to do? So I think that's kind of lame. They just need to make a better platform and they need to make it work for their customers. So that's that on that.
I said the Rex guys or team seems sad because essentially it's data, it's listings, it's a catalog of their listings that they want to put on someone else's catalog. It's like, hey, I have a magazine and I want to advertise my magazine in your magazine. Like, get out of here.
I guess, but wouldn't Zillow make money too? Like, I'm confused.
I'm sure there's some sort of deal, but they probably don't treat all people equally. MLS has their rules and their deals. Then people that are homeowners that want to do a for sale by owner have their rules. And then this other company's like, oh, okay, I see opportunity. I want in. Okay, well, here's your rules.
Yeah, I think that they're ultimately trying to do what Zillow's doing undercover. So I think that it's just part of the nature of business, and Zillow knows what they're doing and they have a huge influence, and everybody goes to Zillow or our friends at Redfin to go find homes for sale. So yeah, it's just it's interesting.
Well, I feel like we've had a lot of maybe darker stories today. Like, things are not looking great in the real estate market. So what can agents do now? As things are kind of like up in the air, things are just up in the air. Okay. What can they do to, keep their head up, keep the leads? What can we do to like impart some, hope or something to agents right now?
To be honest, like the number one thing that realtors can do in this market is become a local expert and tell everybody about what's going on in the community. And the reason why I say that is because it's going to help build your brand around knowing what's going on in the community. And when people have questions about the community, or even when they're ready to buy a house, when the rates are coming down, they're going to remember that person going to the park and to the best ice cream shop downtown and go to them for advice on, is it the right time to buy a home? And I think that that's probably the best thing you can do, is building your brand right now and creating the brand about how you're the local expert. That's going to ultimately pay off regardless.
I think that's really smart, especially from a social media standpoint too. Like, you become really searchable if you become an expert in your area, like coffee shops, events, parks, things going on. If you become the expert, people are going to start searching. Like, when they search that area, your content's going to come up. It's going to keep people top of mind, and it's going to get people interested in your area and where you're at.
Absolutely.
I think that some agents, agents that are going full time. This is an interesting one. So when the market is hot, those agents that are selling a ton, let's say 50 homes a year, let's say they come into a market like we are in today with high interest rates, they're going to have to put the same amount of work, if not double, to get half the result. So as an agent, you might be freaking out like, oh my God, I'm working so hard and I'm not even making half as what I did when everything was good. You have to just buckle down during those times. So that way, when you get the good times again, it all balances out, because it's pretty hard to have all good years where everything is just easy, and bad years the same thing. So really buckling down, and if you don't want to be a part of the statistic of all the agents that are leaving real estate, is be the one in your office, be the one proactive in doing things, because ultimately the statistic is going to take the people that aren't showing up and aren't doing the right things that they should be doing because they expect this higher result. So show up.
And another like shameless plug too for what you guys have been working on, what's coming out later, early next month, is the CRM. Like, I think now is a good time to spend a lot of time on the back end systems. Like you said, like get ready for when things do pick up, like get ready, nurture those leads, do things like that. So do you agree, Nate?
Yeah. Yeah, I think like as far as the CRM goes, what's really cool about it is how it connects with your social media channels. So like within this time, what you could be doing is nurturing those relationships online with your followers, and you can keep them in there and you can tag them accordingly. And I don't think a lot of people really think about social media like that from a realtor standpoint, unless they really got their systems dialed in and they're putting out lead magnets left and right, like Tom Ferry. But I think if you're able to do some work and have a CRM that connects to socials like ours, I think it's going to be a really reasonable priced opportunity for you over the long haul to get that going now.
Totally.
Stay consistent. It's easy to revert back to your old ways, but once you revert, there's someone else gunning for you. So I would say just continue what you've been doing and kind of what has been working, even though it's slower. But once the market picks up, you're not going to miss a beat, because the people that revert are going to be sweating and quadruple lifting what you're lifting.
Hey, what happens when the economy slows down and everyone doesn't want to spend money, right? They stop spending, they get rid of the subscriptions they don't need, right? And what can you do by downsizing some of the subscriptions you don't use? Consolidate to a platform that has it all, like Omni. So if you have a website subscription, if you have a Calendly subscription, if you've got, a CRM, all of these things, and you're paying hundreds of dollars, if not thousands, come to a system like Omni and we can help you out, save some money and make life simpler for you.
Well, this was fun, guys. I'm enjoying these current events podcasts. How are we feeling about them?
I like it. It's cool. It also gets, I think personally for me, a little bit more in tune with the industry aside from, we're always kind of knowledgeable of what's going on in the market, but I like taking the time to really, discuss it and talk about the future of things and what's going on. So it's cool.
We work mostly with real estate agents, so we kind of need to know what's going on in their world so we can help them.
Very true.
I'm just kidding. Well, if you guys are enjoying this podcast, please be sure to subscribe on YouTube, leave us a rating on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and follow us on Instagram at CLOUT Agents. Bye.